And it is a pleasure to introduce you to Laurin with an I from the Guild, and he's going to be talking about Hive GraphQL. Laurin, take it away.
Thank you for the introduction. Yeah, hi. I'm happy to today represent the Guild here. So if you are using Redwood JS, we basically already own your stack because Redwood JS uses GraphQL CodeGenner and GraphQL Yoga, which are two projects that are maintained and were built from the Guild. And today I'm not here to talk about those two projects. Today I'm here to actually talk about GraphQL Hive. And before we get into what GraphQL Hive actually is, let's talk a bit about GraphQL. So GraphQL can be easy if you're using Redwood, for example. So the easiest setup you could imagine is if you only have like a single team or a single developer, you as the team or the developer own both the GraphQL API and the GraphQL API consumer, so all the clients, and maybe even all the code is in the same monorepository. So in that scenario, like evolving a GraphQL schema is like super simple, and breaking clients does not happen. For example, if you make adjustments to your GraphQL schema, you can immediately update the GraphQL operations that use the GraphQL schema within the same pull request if it's the same Git repository, and then just deploy that to production. However, as your GraphQL schema evolves and you get more clients, and maybe even from those like one front-end app that is tightly coupled to your GraphQL API, you introduce like mobile clients or like external clients, it can get a bit more complex. So if you at some point have like many teams, many products, and many developers, and you also have kind of like GraphQL clients that you don't even own or that belong to different teams, and furthermore, the code is spread across different teams, repositories, or even companies, it becomes suddenly quite hard to make changes to the GraphQL schema without knowing how they will affect those clients. And ideally, what you need to know is who are those clients, what parts of the schema are those clients using, and how can we, with that information, roll out schema changes without breaking the clients. As I said, we cannot use the simple model anymore here. So this is basically what GraphQL Hive is trying to solve, which is a schema registry and a breaking change detection tool. So the first part of GraphQL Hive is the schema registry. So what you do is basically, once you change your GraphQL schema or you have your initial GraphQL schema, you push that to GraphQL Hive with a CLI. You could do that, for example, as part of your continuous deployment pipeline. And then from that, you will get a whole overview over the changes that happened within that schema change. For example, some fields could be added, some fields could be removed, some fields type could be changed, and so on. And then you could also link that to your GitHub action, and then it will actually show those changes associated with the commit on GitHub. So now I need to do a small interlude about what is actually a breaking change. And a breaking change in GraphQL can be defined as any change to a schema that would break existing GraphQL operations that are executed. In this example, if we use the bar field from the query type, all the query operations that use the bar field would break. And that is kind of what we want to prevent. So what we can do now is in our CI pipeline, we can use the CLI again to check our schema before publishing it, and then it will give us a full report on whether the schema we're about to publish would be breaking any of those operations or not. And this can again be done with the CLI. And if there's an error, you will get a full report. And obviously, you can also look at the schema check on the Hive UI, and it's also you can also see like a diff of the full schema. And furthermore, the check will be integrated with your GitHub actions. So every time you create a new pull request out of the schema, you get live information on whether this change in your PR would break anything. But that's only one part, because in order to like make reasonable decisions, you also need to know what parts of the schema the clients are using. And this is covered with the usage reporting feature. So what you would would actually do on the GraphQL API is use the Hive SDK, which is available in JavaScript, Ruby, Java, or like any language you can imagine. Put it into the GraphQL API, and then the Hive SDK will start pushing information on how the GraphQL schema is used to GraphQL Hive. From that, we can then, on GraphQL Hive, give you very useful information on how your GraphQL schema is used. First of all, we can list you all the requests, how long requests take, which kind of clients are consuming your GraphQL API, and what versions. We can tell you how many operations are there executed, and can also tell you how many of those fail. Basically, Google Analytics for your GraphQL API. And then we can also give you like a detailed overview over all the operations that are executed, and give you detailed information on how much % of the traffic is related to that operation and how likely is that operation to fail. And then also with that information, we can tell you what fields are used by which client. And this information can kind of be used for approaching teams and telling them, hey, you're using this field, but we already deprecated it. Once you want to remove it, and then over time you can observe whether this number goes down, like the usage data, and then if it's like 0 or approaching 0, you can make the decision to actually remove it. So the powerful feature that is combined from the schema registry and the usage reporting is basically conditional breaking changes. And within Hive, you can configure that, for example, if a certain field is not queried for in the last 30 days, or like only 5% of traffic is using that field, it's safe to remove that field, and schema check should not fail if I'm trying or attempting to remove that field within my pull request. So that basically allows us to make adjustments to the schema without make breaking changes to the schema, but based on the actual usage of all the clients that consume our GraphQL API, it's not a breaking change. And yeah, for Hive, so Hive is available in 2 options. First of all, you can self-host it. All of Hive is fully open source, completely free for you to self-host, and you can get started within 5 minutes by only running Docker Compose. And if you want to change something, fix something, or like request something, just open a GitHub issue or GitHub pull request. And then we also have the GraphQL Hive Cloud version. There's a generous free plan for that. We don't charge based on pricing on seats. So also we give you a single sign-on with all plans, so you don't have to pay extra for that. And then also what you will always only pay for is the collected schema usage data and the data retention, which is required for like analytics data and conditional breaking changes. Obviously, we also have like an enterprise plan with SLA and whatever you want, like live support on Slack, you name it. And yeah, that's it. There's obviously more projects we maintain, but today is mostly about Hive. Yeah, thank you.
All right, Laurin, thank you. I mean, we'll ask another time, but what I don't understand is how you're ever going to make money if you don't charge $100 per user for SSO. So we'll talk about that another time. But first up, Robin, you're in the middle. You're in the middle of building and using GraphQL every day, Robin. So what do you think about Hive?
Well, I mean, this looked great. If the question I had for most of the presentation was going to be like, well, am I writing contracts of the queries that are going to be used? But if it's all just auto-detected, then that seems very straightforward. To the extent that you're kind of building a dashboard in a way that people might interpret as, understanding what's happening behind the scenes, is there any like performance metrics that would be associated with the incoming queries that you could use for kind of, fast query optimization or anything like that?
So in general, we can give you information about operation itself in isolation, like this operation, how long does it take? But obviously, like the performance of a GraphQL operation is depending on what kind of data is selected within the GraphQL operation. And for now, we don't like track the resolver execution times for many reasons. First of all, it's like highly implementation dependent. Like it would work different in JavaScript, in Ruby, or whatever language. On the other hand, it's like too much data is also unuseful. What we recommend people is to use for resolver tracing is like to use something like OpenTelemetry, and then wrap only those like fields that you're interested in. And maybe in the future we will even like ship a feature that allows you to hook up OpenTelemetry with Hive, and then we can reuse that information and share it with you also on that dashboard.
Amy, what do you think?
Oh man. So my favorite features that you listed were the fact that it will track your schema changes. So if I'm working with a team, you know exactly what changes are being made. And the fact that you also are running queries to see what changes or what queries were made last so that you can make changes safely. Those features are just absolutely fantastic. Well done.
Thank you.
All right. And Elena, how about you? And I'm watching chat. If there's any questions you have, we'll highlight those as well. Elena, go ahead.
Yeah, that's super cool. I have one question, which is like, if I'm a developer like getting started, it seems like it's super easy to get started. You said like less than 5 minutes, but seeing as like you are capturing all this like usage data and analytics, is there anything I need to worry about from like a security perspective, or like where are you storing the data about the usage of the GraphQL queries?
So we don't store any like of the data that is like sent from your server to the client. Like we only care about the GraphQL operation and what fields are selected in there. And that's basically, to some extent, you can say, okay, if you know the GraphQL schema of someone, that is already like a security risk. But what's more often like more security issue is like the actual data. And the actual like payloads, GraphQL execution results never enter Hive. We always only extract like the fields that are used from the operations and only push that data to Hive. So it's pretty secure.
Cool.
All right. Thank you, Laurin. A pleasure. Thank you, panelists. You're all doing a fine job. I appreciate having you here.